not know whether those individuals saw the unmasked information. That's according to the National Security Agency, which gathered the intelligence intercepts and did the unmasking. We don't know why they requested the information, and we do not know who, if any of them, leaked Michael Flynn's name to the media. In an interview with Fox Business's Maria Bartiromo, though, President Trump says he has no doubt that this was all an attempt to get him. Listen here.
It was the greatest political crime in the history of our country. If I were a Democrat instead of a Republican, I think every
In the meantime, President Trump slams former Vice President Joe Biden and former President Barack Obama for their handling of the Michael Flynn case. One America's Dana Alexa walks us through the bombshell revelations.
The biggest political crime in American history. That's how President Trump is describing the latest revelations over General Michael Flynn and the Obama administration's involvement in the transition of power and information to the current White House team. What could be the start of a new corruption case all began on January 5th, 2017. It was at this meeting where then President Obama gave guidance to key DOJ officials who would be tasked with protecting his administration's secretly funded Clinton campaign research, better known as Fusion GPS. It was the research that served the foundation for a
comment on the release of those names related to.
well, the unmasking is a massive. It's a massive thing. It's. I just got a list. It's. Who can believe a thing like this? And I watched Biden yesterday on Good Morning America being interviewed by one of your colleagues, George Stephanopoulos, and he said he knew nothing about anything. He has no idea. He knows nothing about anything. Nothing at all. And then it gets released today that he was a big unmasker. So how do you know nothing if you're one of the unmaskers?
The walls are closing in on the deep state. California dictatorship takes a hit. And fake news is alive as ever. Hello, I'm Mike Huckabee, and this is this week's Breakdown. Well, if you've subscribed to my newsletter on MikeHuckabee.com, you would have read my summary of the 88-page transcript of a House Intel Committee interview with CrowdStrike cybersecurity expert Sean Henry. It's a huge story that, sadly, most of the media will bury under a pile of bar-bashing and scary coronavirus stories. Really, though, this story is arguably the scariest one of all because it shows that our country has spent the past several years in the grip of a different kind of contagion, mass hysteria. And yet, you have so-called media watchdogs like Brian Stelter over at CNN upset because conservatives are actually covering this breaking news on government corruption. Let's watch.
It's so disappointing to look at what we're seeing from right-wing media these days, where there's such an obsession with the deep state and these revelations about the Russia probe.
Fox News alert, newly declassified documents identifying more than a dozen Obama administration officials involved in the unmasking of Michael Flynn. And at the top of that list, former Vice President Joe Biden. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith.
And a very pleasant good morning to you, Sandra. I'm Ed Henry. The officials who were authorized to receive that information include Joe Biden, the former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Chief James Comey, the former Treasury Secretary Jack Lew, former CIA Director John Brennan, former UN Ambassador Samantha Power, and President Obama's Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough.
Those officials all making requests that may have identified Flynn as the American overheard in that December 2016 call, talking to the Russian ambassador about lifting U.S. sanctions. President Trump and Republicans calling it proof the Obama administration sought to undermine him from the very beginning.
This was all Obama. This was all Biden. These people were corrupt. The whole thing was corrupt, and we caught them.
General Flynn is really just the tip of the iceberg. What it appears to me like what they were doing is a lot of them went wild after Trump won. They got poisoned with this Russia hoax.
If Vice President Biden and the president's inner circle of advisors were all listening to a senior Trump administration advisor's private phone conversation, this would amount to a serious abuse of power.
This is an outrage. It's at least unethical, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. They had no business listening to anything General Flynn was saying about Trump policy.
Fox team coverage now. Former House Oversight Chairman Trey Gowdy here live to react. But we begin this hour with Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts live on the North Lawn. Good morning, John.
Ed, good morning to you. There are things that we know and things that we don't know about this whole situation. First, to the things that we know. We do know that between Election Day 2016 and the end of January 2017, requests to unmask the name of General Michael Flynn were submitted either by or on behalf of Vice President Joe Biden, the White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough, Treasury Secretary Jack Lew, the UN Ambassador Samantha Power, the Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, the CIA Director John Brennan, and the FBI Director James Comey, among others. Now, what we do not know, we do not